Hey, you and I have a whole bunch of contracts to talk about today, but I found two things in my email I wanted to share with everybody real quick.
Okay, sounds good.
Relevant. The first one, I don't want to chat. I want to share my screen. We don't need this anymore. Don't need that anymore. Okay, so I already cleared out 25 other emails from today, but I got this one today. Am I sharing? Yes.
Mhm.
New listings from Jimmy McNally. There's 8 new listings here. What is this, Crystal?
That is Moxie.
That is Moxie.
On steroids, absolutely.
And Moxie says, we're going to make you look better to the people you already know. So just like Zillow is hitting me with all the crap they hit me with as a consumer, now I got my agent, Jimmy McNally. Hey, Craig, there's 8 new listings for you. And here they pop up, right? And it's really professional looking. And if I click it, what are you doing? I didn't understand that. Because I wasn't talking to you. So this is what Jimmy's shown us in training classes. He set me up on a new listing search and he drew a map area around Apollo Beach.
Mm-hmm.
For me, he left out Waterset, right? Because he hand drew the map.
Right.
And then comes up and tells me what the new listings are on the market. And then if I click on any of these things, it's just interactive. I can say, oh, look, 1.65 million. Holy cow. What is this? And then brings up the picture of the house on Chipaway. And I can go back and look at the pictures. There's 84 pictures. I want to see them. It's a direct MLS feed.
Mm-hmm.
Jimmy didn't know this one out. I didn't mean to do that. Sorry. He didn't even know this one out, right? Because he just set me up on a one-time search.
Mm-hmm.
And if I'm interested in it, I'll click it. And if I'm not, I'll come down here and I'll unsubscribe and I'll get off, right? So
but
this
human nature is people want to know what's happening in their market.
I just stopped, one of my neighbors just stopped on their way out to work. And did you see the new listing on the zero lot lines for $1.2 million?
Yep.
They know about it. How does she know about that?
Because somebody is sending it because she subscribed someplace. And if they're going to subscribe, they need to subscribe to us.
Exactly. So this is why it's important that you go back and rewatch the class yesterday that Jimmy gave on Engage, Moxie Engage. And then he led you through the Next Level Resource Center, showed you a whole bunch of other content. So I know it's a lot we're asking you to do, but this is really important stuff for your business, right? And I want you to think longer term. You know, you get older and older and older, and you don't do real estate anymore, but you've built up this book of business that's worth a lot of money. And you can pass it along to somebody else in the company who will nurture it for you and be glad to pay you referral fees on all the business they generate from your book of business. But you got to nurture that book of business. And one takeaway we came up with yesterday was, you know, it'll alert you to your customers' birthdays. It'll alert you to your customer's house anniversary. But you've got to tell it when the birthday is and when the house anniversary is. Right. So it makes we're chatting in back and forth. John Evans said, you know, when he gets at closing, I think it was John who said, at closing, when they get the driver's license, he gets it and looks at the birth date. There you go. Right. And then you got to go add it to the CRM. Mm-hmm. And then you got to mark in there that when you have your leads in the Moxie lead engine, when it closes, you got to put a closing date in and the price and all that stuff. And then you can custom do a little thing and it'll set up a reminder to remind you the day before. And you can do a little bit of research like that Brian Buffini letter I sent. Hey, Crystal, congratulations. It's been 2 years since you bought your house. And you know from the Alta how much money they put down. Mm-hmm. And you can say, you know, your house is worth, you know, about $100,000 more than you paid for it. And you only put $20,000 down. That's a pretty damn good return on investment. By the way, who else do you know like to make a return like that? Send them my way. So these are all little things you can do when you set up this thing properly. So enough of that, not my purpose for today, but, and then this I got today. And I got the saying, if you're going to make shit up that makes you feel good, right? So a lot of information comes at us. And this is Elliot's brief blog. I played you some of his stuff in the past. He's called the Bow Tie Economist. And he was hired by NAR to do a big presentation, which really was impressive to me. And I just like the way he thinks. And this is talk about inflation, right? And I was talking with somebody last night. Oh, I was talking to Jim Holloway last night. And he says, you know, this recession is going to make prices fall. And I'm like, Jim, do you know that 4 out of the last 5 recessions, real estate prices went up? He goes, no, they didn't. I said, yes, they did. 4 out of the last 5, not in the 2008 crash. I said, the 2008 crash is artificial. And this is a friggin' attorney, right?
Right.
So who knows? A real estate attorney at that.
That makes it worse.
CPI, Consumer Price Index inflation, is 8.5%. That's high inflation.
Mhm.
Market-based inflation expectations, MBIE, 1 year from now are 4.8. That's still high inflation.
Mhm.
But the market-based inflation expectations over the 5-year period, starting from a year from now, are 2.32%. And over the 5-year period, starting in 5 years, are just 2.6%.
Okay. Follow you.
These low forward-looking inflation numbers strongly suggest the market, which isn't necessarily correct, thinks our high inflation is unlikely to persist. This should make the Fed's job of lowering inflation easier. So if you're going to make up stuff that makes you
Make
feel
it up
good.
right. Mhm.
So I like doing these, every day because I like what he has to say. Stop sharing. Cool. All right. See, there's a challenge. We need more people watching us, Crystal, because we have good things to talk about today.
I know they're going to miss out
Yeah. But they're going to watch it on their own time later on, I'm sure.
on replay. Absolutely.
The first thing after Jim and I spoke yesterday, we talked about, and you picked up on this right away. He says, remind your agents to put a floor on their appraisal gap.
Mhm.
Yes, Lauren, the cool folks are here.
Hey, Lauren.
So what did that mean? A floor on the appraisal gap? You picked up on it last night.
It's plain and simple. Everyone, I put an appraisal, I put in an escalation clause, or I put in an appraisal gap, and I said I'm going to go $5,000 over the appraised value. And wow, that's great. But you're missing out on some key words there, because what if the house is listed for $399? You and your mind are saying, oh, I'll go 5,000 over. So that'll take me we'll go up to 404. But if you just put over the appraised value, what happens if it appraises at 350?
Then the buyer gets to buy the house for 355.
Exactly.
So they went to contract at 399, and now they get the right to buy it at 365. How does the seller feel about that?
You better shut down all your social media, because I don't think you're going to have a good review.
And so Jim Holloway
review. Your seller's pissed. Your seller's pissed. You have screwed them. And that's where we as agents, you just can't write stuff and not understand the implications. And that's where you call us. If you're uncertain of the language.
Well, it's double, it's two-sided. If you're the buyer's agent, write it like that.
Exactly.
Try to pull, if you're a single agent for the buyer, which means they sign a single agent notice, because you're not a single agent for the buyer, and you can't play that game as a transaction broker, but you can play that game as a single agent, right? Get that stuff in your head. So as a single agent for the buyer, try it. If the seller agent doesn't catch it, whoop, whoop for you.
And think about all those new agents out there.
Yes. Yeah.
There's one on every corner.
House realty with no education, no training. You can slide it right by them.
Mm-hmm.
And if it doesn't appraise, your buyers will be really happy. And tell your buyer, hey, look, I'm going to try this. I don't know if it's going to work or not. We'll see. If I was listening, I would counter this and say, $399, $5,000 over appraisal, but not less than $399.
Correct.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
Just those little words.
Yeah. What's more? Okay. Those little words make a difference. But luckily in this market, the house is probably going to appraise. But think about in some of the different markets, what happens if you come in with that appraisal contingency and you don't have that not less than purchase price, and they owe more money? Then what happens?
Ooh. Yeah, it's called misrepresentation.
Correct.
It's punishable by a FREC review.
Correct.
I'm not trying to scare you. I'm just telling you what it is.
And no one wants a little slap on the wrist.
Yeah. So as you're the listing agent, and I'm going to be a little seated here, but and the uneducated buyer's agent writes a clause like that, and you don't catch it, then you're looking like the negligent one. And that's the one Jim had to deal with. The seller called Jim, the attorney, all pissed off. And Jim said he wasn't happy. And I told him, your agent screwed you by not catching that clause.
Correct.
And our sellers aren't expected to know that because we have superior knowledge over the public. So if there's one nugget right there from today, that's it, right? Make sure there's a floor on your appraisal gap because we're still writing appraisals. And I'll tell you right now, I've got a little to-do list of scripts and videos I want to do. And one of them is I'm going to do a video to the public saying that an MLS price reduction does not mean prices are falling. It just means the agent put it on way too high.
Correct.
Right. And I had that same conversation with Holloway last night. I told about a neighbor who put their house on the market for 2.5. You know, they put it on at $550 a foot. And the latest and greatest sale of the house in my neighborhood was $482 a foot. So they would have been better off putting on at $482, getting a whole bunch of attention and probably selling it for, you know, closer to $500 a foot. But they put it on at $550 a foot and they're walking around the neighborhood and I see, and they say, nothing's happening. The market's really slow. I said, no, you didn't. I didn't tell them this because they're our client. The market's not slow. You just overpriced your house too much.
I mean, and look, I'll use myself as an example. I had a listing. I did my CMA. I told the client, I really think that the range of the house, I thought it was between 610 and 620. We should put it on the market for that. They said, nope, 650, Crystal. Feedback, price too high, price too high. I said, let's put it on there and let the market drive it up. Doing my weekly updates with them. It took 6 months to sell the house.
And what did it sell for?
It sold for 610. right where I told him.
Yes, I was talking to Jim and I said, Jim, the problem is these sellers are greedy. And he says, no, Craig, the problem is the agents are not strong enough with the sellers. Ooh, there's a two-headed coin, right? Which one is it?
Right. Which one is it? But if our agents are doing the CMAs and say, here's what it is. Yes, Mr. Customer or Miss Customer, I'm going to list it there. But just know here's where my pricing and strategy is coming in. And we just have to have this conversation. Because in this market, there's going to be somebody else. I think I was talking with you and I said, I'm getting so sick in Orlando of seeing these listings that are coming in and these agents are starting to take 2% and 1.5%. That's it's ridiculous just to get a listing.
Yep. And they're taking it overpriced too. And they're keeping more for themselves and paying less to the co-broke, which you don't know.
Yeah. And I've had that happen and you're not happy when you look at the Alta and you're like, oh, really?
Yes.
You weren't like Beggins and we want to do equal for the co-broke? Nope.
Note to self, try not to do business with that person.
Oh yeah.
Anyway.
Absolutely.
And that is important, guys. Your reputation in the marketplace. I mean, we're 30 years in now. And I'm very honored that most of the agents that work with our agents are very complimentary of our agency. We love working with Central Phone agents. I mean, Keller Williams South Shore went as far as in their staff meeting, they told everybody, listen, if you have a buyer, sell a Beggins list whatever you can, take whatever listings you can get. But if you have a buyer, sell a Beggins listings, you always get 3%.
Wow.
Don't even try to sell our listings, just go sell a Beggins listing.
You'll make more money.
I'd like to have that recorded. Okay, this one I'm not too sure about, but it's something we have to learn more about. Stop it, I don't want that open. It just happens. Oh, look, my computer says it's humid. House Bill 4D. Jeff called me yesterday.
Okay.
And so what is House Bill 4D? It just got passed into law in May. And remember there's a condo in Miami that collapsed?
Yes.
Okay. House Bill 4D. And I that's why I called Jim Holloway yesterday to get more information. He didn't have any information for it on me. But basically, Florida-wide, I think it's condos built before 1980.
Okay.
The association has to hire an engineer to prove that the structure is sound. Because when you're buying a condo, what are you buying?
You're buying a fractional share.
No, you're buying the airspace in between the walls.
Right.
Right. So the seller can't really warrant the structure of the building, because he's not selling the structure of the building. They're
Mhm.
getting an undivided interest in the structure of the building, but they're not getting fee simple title to the structure of the building.
Correct.
So Jeff called me and said, hey, should we start disclosing this? Because a lot of these, there's two problems. One, the engineer has to be certified in a special way to approve these buildings. And there's a
Okay.
shortage of those kinds of engineers right now. So it's a long time to go. A lot of condo associations are managed by residents
Mhm.
who aren't going to be in the know about this new law and requirement. If they're managed by a condo association management company, they'd be expected to know this, right? But the challenge is if you don't have this engineer certification that the building is good, the insurance companies won't insure it. So
Is
if
that,
you don't,
so is that effective immediately?
that was effective May of this year.
Okay, so it's May.
May of
So
last
then that brings up another good point. This is where we as agents need to make sure that we get the minutes.
Yes. That's my favorite thing about condos. Seller, if you're the buyer's agent, write in seller to provide buyer with 6 months, most recent 6 months of condo meeting minutes.
Well, on the condo disclosure form, it
Right.
says on there, and there's a box and so many people miss it. And I get so many agents because I protect my clients. There's a clause on there that says that you have to provide all of this stuff within X number of days and you have to reinitial back on it. And so that's where you cover your clients behind and yours of getting that information. Because
Yeah.
guess what? They can get it from their portal.
Most
So
of the cases, yes.
Mhm.
Most facilitated to that. So that's a big deal if you're selling condos, because once your inspection period's over, you don't have a right to cancel based on insurance unless it's flood insurance. You have a flood insurance exception. Maybe that'll be a new version of a new contract, but right now you can't. So if you find out 6 days before closing that you can't get insurance on the building you just bought and you got a loan and you can't close, you're in breach. You lose your deposit.
So folks need to really make sure when you're doing those inspection periods, this comes in during that 3-day, 5-day, 7-day, 10-day, whatever you're doing.
Or you plan ahead and say this contract subject to seller providing certification of engineering status, but it's really not the sellers. That was that's where Jim and I were going. We had a big argument. It was a friendly argument, but it was an argument. He said, I don't think this is a latent defect. And I said, are you kidding? It's a material fact that affects the value of the real estate. He goes, but does it? Because the seller isn't selling the building. The seller is selling the condo space. It's the condo association's responsibility to have that done.
So, I'd be really curious. So I wonder if that is a piece that should be added from a title standpoint on the estoppel, one of the estoppel questions.
Yeah, well, I called the title attorney. He didn't know. So.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, see, Donna, that's why we like to have a reputation of being good agents. So Donna's saying, I had to go looking for the condo docs because the listing agent didn't post in MLS. What I would do in that case, remember the contract's between the buyer and the seller. So if you can't find them, put in the contract before you write it, a seller to provide all recent condo meeting minutes and whatever the other things are to buyer no later than a date. Just call it out. And then if the seller doesn't do it, it's a breach and you can still look for them yourselves. But if you find them recorded in the county, what are you most likely not going to find?
You're not gonna get the minutes.
You're not going to get the minutes, you're not going to get the amendments. So the condo docs were written in 1984, and this is 2022. There probably were some amendments made to those originally that were certified and recorded with the county back when the condo was built.
So one of the things I do as soon as something hits, like if I'm doing something and I'm reaching out, they have that condo person's name there, I reach out to them immediately. So once my contract is done and it's been submitted, I send it to title, I send it to the lender. I also ask the condo person for the information just to make sure I have updated stuff.
That's perfect. So it's just little things that make you the extra few steps are what's going to, number one, keep us out of trouble. And number two, give you the reputation of being a great agent, which will end up in more referrals for you. We got some comments going. I got to check these out.
Check out what they're saying.
Yeah, a special warranty deed is typically used in condos. I do look for that. Sometimes the seller can't get the minutes, so the seller can't get them from the HOA. Usually they are online to the owner. Yeah, most of the time now in today's world, like if you want Symphony House condo docs or HOA docs, you go to symphonyhouse.com and you can grab them.
Mhm.
So a lot of places have that now. But still, if you are having a hard time and they're not posted to the MLS, write into the contract, seller to provide buyer with all relevant HOA or condo docs, no later than 5 days after time for acceptance.
You know what, Kirk, that might be something good we build into, we have Angelique to build into dot loop, because there's some certain verbiage that she already has built in there. We may have that built in so that the agent or their transaction coordinator can just automatically have our
Yeah.
approved verbiage, and it just clicks right in. They can click it
You're
in.
talking about the clauses section in dot loop, because we can handwrite whatever we want.
Yeah.
Lawrence, I also add those docs to the loop. There you go. And have the buyer sign off that they receive them to cover everyone.
Thanks, Angelique. She's like, okay.
Yeah. Curious about the remodel of a condo damaging the structure of the building. Yeah, I am too. I don't know what to tell you about that.
Mhm.
There would be fines involved for the owner to the association. No, condo docs are not considered to be prohibited in private information. They're a public record. They're on public records.
Mhm.
All right, number 3, 4. This one just bothers me. I don't think you and I talked about this last night, but an agent sent me a note and said, hey, if I'm going to go off market with a listing, am I allowed to market it?
No.
And
Do you want
I
your
said,
license?
why would you want to go off market in the first place? What the biggest value we have as realtors is the competitive bidding environment.
Exactly.
So if I have a pocket listing and it sits in my pocket,
Who's going to see
how many
it?
people are going to see it?
Right.
Right? I want to put it on MLS so it feeds all those sites. So buyers in Canada and California and New York and Texas and Arizona see it. They're not going
Correct.
to see in my pocket. Right?
So what
And
was the rationale?
so, well, it was 2 things. They don't have a signed listing agreement. So can they market it? And the answer to that is yes. If you have a listing, you can't publicly market it. But if it's,
Wait, repeat that again. So they don't have a signed listing, but you're saying they can market it?
yeah, they could put it on Facebook. It's not a listing. It's stupid because there's no guarantee the seller is going to pay you.
Right. But isn't there a clause, isn't there a clause in, I don't know if it's in our code of ethics, that says that if you're going to sell as a real, there's something under the realtor clause.
Is it realtors?
Yeah.
Well, I know the MLS code. If it's on the if it's listed, you can't
Mhm.
publicly market it until it's on the MLS. But if it's not public, if it's
I'll
not on
go
the
back and
MLS,
double check. There's something in our realtor clause, I think.
well, my purpose here is why would you want to go off market anyway? What are you gonna do? Knock on doors in the condo building and tell all the neighbors it's for sale? Well, what about the neighbors 3 buildings down that might want to move into that building? It's just not in the best interest of the seller. And this particular seller is a client of ours, so I know well. And he called me and said, hey, my wife really doesn't want to go on the open market because we have a lot of friends who are realtors and she doesn't want them all getting pissed off. I'm like, well, grow up, we're talking
Grow up.
business here.
Hello.
I said, I 100% recommend you go publicly on the market because you're going to miss all the buyers. The last house we sold in Tierra Verde was $4.9 million. Our agent Michelle had the listing. We had buyers flying in on private jets from New York to see this condo, to put offers in on it.
Wow.
It sold in like 3 days. Now, if she had put that in her pocket,
Exactly.
the buyers in New York wouldn't have flown in on their private jets to pay cash for a $4.95 million house. Right.
Yeah.
And sometimes sellers come up with just stupid cockamamie things, and it's our job to be the voice of reason, right?
Mhm.
And that's
Absolutely.
just, I can't argue against what I just said. There's no way an off market is going to give the seller the best exposure.
No.
Our job is to give the seller the best exposure. You had a topic on fraudulent sellers.
Mm-hmm.
And guys, in the world like we're in right now, I just got an article. I think I have it open right now. One second. Yeah, I do. Let me share. Shut up. Tampa, Miami lead country in housing price increases over the last few months, says a study. The Tampa area had a 35.8% price increase in April when compared to a year earlier. Tampa and Miami top other metro areas across the country in a new analysis of housing price increases. The Tampa area had a 35.8% price increase in April, according to CoreLogic's Case Shiller US Home National. That's a pretty damn good source, right? Tampa was followed by Miami with 33.3%. And then Phoenix at 31.3%. Those three areas have repeatedly led the nation in price increases in recent months. Now, this came to me from the sellers that I'm selling that land for. And they called me and wanted all the buyers' contact information because they wanted to send this article to them. Why would they do that? They want to keep them motivated.
Yep. Absolutely.
Because they bought this property almost a year ago. So what does that mean? They've got 38% equity already.
Right.
So they've already made $4 million on the land they bought. So they're basically saying, don't play games with me, is what they're saying. So I think that's just kind of smart. Okay, so you were talking about fraudulent sellers. Tell us your story.
So talking to a fellow realtor friend of mine, and we're going to get into this week, how do you get your business? And so I'm a prospector. It's no secret. I like my realtor friend, we call FSBO's expired, it's canceled. She was actually calling on a listing. She got this listing. She was great. Guy provided her ID, provided her with his email address, the same. It was craigbeggins@gmail.com. Here's the catch. His computer wasn't working every time, something was wrong with his camera when she was trying to get online. Short story, it was a fraudulent listing. He title company caught it when they were doing their verification, and it's out there. And this particular agent in the month of May had 3 fraudulent listings with people posing as sellers. Not a good situation.
How do you address that?
You got to know who you're selling to. You have to know if they're doing, I do a lot of international folks or folks out of state. We have to video. There has to be something that I can see you, and have to have some type of verification, because we get so excited to get listings. And the crazy story on this one, the added twist is one of the sellers was so excited that this listing agent working with a title company caught it, that she reached out to her and she said, I actually do want to sell my land. And it was in Kissimmee. And she was like, I want you to represent me. So my friend was excited. She was happy. And when title went to do that initial search, her property had been sold 3 times in June. And so she has a truly defective title. And so, the story could not get worse than that.
I can't even fathom how that happens. There's so many safeguards against that.
Yep.
Right. But I guess it comes down to the notes I wrote on that were knowing your buyer and seller.
Absolutely.
Especially if you're dealing with out-of-state owners or out-of-country owners. There's a lot of fraud out there, guys. And we just got to double down and not be so naive and be a little more diligent.
Correct.
Good. Okay, I wrote down waiving appraisals. So, and my theory there is understand the market has changed. You and I talked about this last night too. You've got a buyer who's looking for a house in the $600,000 price range. Oh no, in the $700,000 price range. And you found the perfect house for them. The sellers want 800.
Mm-hmm.
And it's really not worth 800. So they're discouraged because they only want to spend 700 and they're afraid to make an offer.
Right.
Right. Because they hear the market's so hot that they're not going to get accepted because they have multiple offers and multiple bids. Well, that has changed now. You know, we're down to, I talked to Angelique yesterday, we have the last 3 days, we've done 8 contracts a day.
Okay.
So take 8 contracts a day times 20 days, because we'll do a hot sheet 20 days a month, Monday through Friday. So that's 160 sales a month at an average commission rate of $12,000 commission. So it's a $2 million month again.
Mhm.
So that's a damn good month. So yeah, we're slowing down. But I remember our goal was to have a $2 million month. Now I'm pissed off if we don't have a $2 million month. And I'm happy when we have a $3 million month. So we're slowing down our growth because we used to do, $1.5 million a month.
Mhm.
So waiving appraisals is more dangerous now because the sellers have been pricing and the agents have been allowing it more aggressive pricing. So it's okay now to go in and make offers because you're seeing it that the offers are coming in slower. Houses on the market for 3, 4, 5, 6 months.
Mhm.
And there's a lot of things happening now. And I want you to really, really think about this because it's true. All these new homes that have been, snapped off the shelf and just gone, that were under construction. What did those buyers qualify at?
They qualified at probably 3.5.
3.5%, some in the 2s. And when
Exactly.
they didn't lock that rate in for 6 or 8 months. They can't do it. So now that buyer is going to have to go to their lender and get requalified and relocked when the house is almost finished. And they're going to find 6, maybe more than 6, because that's going to go up again probably soon.
And if they
So-
qualified at the max of their budget when they first got it,
They're not going to qualify again. So you're going to see a lot of new homes come back on the market. So our savvy agents have built relationships with the new home consultants for all these new home builders
right?
and reach out to them and said, hey, if you get a deal that falls apart, let me know. And the proof of this is Lennar went back and ate crow and said, hey, we're paying 3% now on certain homes. Right? Lennar didn't budget to carry that house for 2 or 3 months
They just knew it was gonna
It
go
was
to
just-
highest and best
and get it done. So now we're seeing that. So a lot of your new home construction that started, 4, 5, 6 months ago, those buyers are going to fall out. Right?
right. They're gonna fall out. And then you just look at the numbers, because I'm on DR Horton. I've sold several DR Horton homes. And so I'm on their list and they send their stuff over via via WhatsApp. And they are offering, on top of their 3% here in the market, they're offering, 2 weeks ago was an additional $1,000 bonus on top of the 3%. Now, I just got the sheet yesterday and it's $2,000 over because because they know that the slowdown is there and help us. But it's huge.
Yeah. But Lennar doing it. I mean, that's eating
I
crow
know,
right
yes,
there.
they're coming off of their 0.75%.
They were 1% in Tampa, but still.
Oh, they're 0.75 here.
Are they really?
Oh, yeah. But who else? And if you look from a builder standpoint, Ryan has expensive homes, and
Mhm.
Ryan is actually less than Lennar, but they won't do the percentage. They just do the flat fee. But
Right.
if you do the math yourself, you will realize that, it's less than 0.75%.
Yeah. It's like $2,500 or something.
It was 3,500. Now they've gone up to 4,000 here. But then you can't get one of their houses under 400.
Right.
So,
Mm.
but if it fits for your client, which I sold 2 of their properties, it fits for it fit for my client because they wanted an inventory home that gave you a twist of being able to put some additional features in it. And it's the only builder that you can do that in that price range in our market. So.
Okay. Another challenge that has been a bad practice that we've all gotten used to in the old market, meaning a couple months ago, is waiving home inspections.
Mhm.
Bad idea. Right?
Yep.
It's never, you're buying an as-is house with no inspections rights. it's bad real estate. I mean, sometimes you have to do it to get the house in the market we were in, but that market has changed. So we need to change with it. And Crystal found in .lube a home inspection disclosure. So I went to, oh, don't do that. Can you keep me in it? Okay. So I do too.
So I guess everybody's going to figure out how geeky I am, and I actually read every last single detail imaginable.
Okay, you go to templates. All FAR forms are located under Florida Interactive Forms. So you come up here and search for inspection. I like showing you how to do it rather than just showing the form.
No, I love it.
Inspection. Search. Buyer's walkthrough inspection, home inspection disclosure. This form contains a recommendation to the buyer to obtain a survey, appraisal, and home inspection. That sounds like the one I want.
Yep.
So broker and its associates recommend that you exercise any right you have to obtain a survey, appraisal, and a home inspection. A home inspection is a limited visual inspection of the systems and components of a home. A home inspection may not reveal any defects that are not readily discoverable through a limited visual examination of the home. It may also not reveal any building code violations. You may wish to ask your home inspector for a written contract detailing the scope of the inspection, as well as an agreed upon fee for the inspection. The fee you pay to your home inspector is paid outside of closing and is not a part of your closing costs. Such fee is due and payable at the time of the inspection. Home inspectors are regulated by the state of Florida. Buyer acknowledges that the broker and its associates make no representations concerning the competency of any inspectors, contractors, and/or repair persons. You agree to hold harmless Century 21 Beggins or Elizabeth Beggins or B3 and its associates from any liability or damages. Buyer elects to perform any or all, or buyer elects not to perform. And then it says, if you elect to proceed without the benefit of the above mentioned inspections, you agree to hold harmless Century 21 Beggins et al. And its associates from any liability or damages. We don't say so. That's a pretty strong form for somebody to sign.
Yep.
Right. So if you get the cocky guy from New York who says, yeah, I don't need a home inspection. I did all this stuff myself. I built 17 houses in Monmouth County. I know what I'm doing. Okay, sign this.
Here you go.
And who's forcing you to do it? Blame me, the broker. The broker requires this form if you're not getting a home inspection.
Mm-hmm.
That's how important it is. So check right here. You're holding us harmless and you elect not to take my advice. So when the E&O claim comes in, we produce this document and they go, bye-bye.
Exactly. I mean, it's just another thing. And in this world, I mean, you hate that you have to do it, but you just need to make sure. I wouldn't have recommended it if it was my buyer, but I was on the listing side. So I'm just like, okay, listing house built in 2018, they waived the inspection.
Mm-hmm.
And I kept reaching out. I did our critical date timeline. I reached out to the agent, you know that you're at the expiration date. And he was like, we're going to waive it. And I said, please provide that to me in an email.
Yep.
Provide it to me in an email. He was like, no, we're not going to do it. I said, you've not scheduled it yet. No, we're just going to waive it. It's a newer house. It should be good.
Hope you're right. Hope you're not a single agent for your buyer.
Right.
Right.
They waived that and the appraisal contingency.
Great job for us as the seller's agent.
Exactly.
Okay, this is just a rant topic, but the buyer power has shifted. And it's time for us to acknowledge that. Everybody's saying the market slowed down, and it has slowed down.
Mm-hmm.
It went from 105 miles an hour to 95 miles an hour, but it's still going fast compared to what a normal market is. But now, you know, the sellers are less educated because all they hear is the news or what people put on Facebook, which may be fake news or not. Right. But I'm telling you right now, the market has shifted and is continuing to shift. And it's a little slower now, but it's still really fast compared to what normal is. Just like interest rates at 6% are really good interest rates.
Right.
Remember the graph I showed you on Tuesday? I
Yeah.
mean, it went from 18 to 6. The recession took the rates up to 18 to slow down the market. And then to speed it back up, they dropped down to 16. That was like a recession in 1980.
Mhm.
Then the recession in 1990, rates were up 12%. They put them up to 12 to slow down the economy. And then they dropped them to 9. And we're bitching about 6, right? So
Exactly.
everything has time. And that's, my dad has a saying, old age and treachery outdoes youth and skill. The fact of the matter is most agents in the marketplace today have never sold a house with a mortgage rate higher than 5%. Right. And that's just because we came off this most incredible market we've ever seen. So we need to embrace the fact that the buyer now has power in the transaction they never had before.
Mhm.
Because the seller's not getting 20. We're still getting multiple offers. I was talking to Chris Reed yesterday. We're still getting multiple offers. If the house is priced right, it's drawing a lot of attention. And if it's in a good market with a good school district, et cetera, buyers are flocking for it. I ran into one of my neighbors on Acapella, it's a street in here, a friend of mine. And he says, Craig, I can't believe what's happening. It's just insane. I said, yeah. He said, my neighbor just bought, over 7 figures, which that street was selling for in the 600s and 700s. Now they're over $1 million. And he's from California. And he's constantly seeing my neighbor, my friend, and saying, hey, remember, if you hear of anybody who's even thinking, I've got a ton of buddies in California that want to come down here and they'll pay cash. Right. And they know what he paid. And so it's out there. There's still a whole bunch of stuff. That's why you want to hit the open market, to the competitive bidding environment, because there's people watching it.
Exactly.
And they're tied up to realtor.com, or they're tied into Zillow, or they're tied into MLS searches with agents. And they're going to get this information as soon as it hits the open market. But if it doesn't hit the open market, it's not going to hit the broad market.
Absolutely.
So what other things happen when the power shifts more in the buyer's favor?
I'm sorry, I didn't hear what your question was.
What happens, and what are some of the things that can change now that the buyer has more power? You don't need to waive the inspection.
You don't have to waive the inspection. You
No, it's
don't
okay.
have to. You don't have to waive the inspection. You don't have to waive your appraisal contingencies. I mean, I've gotten deals with both of them. Now, we're in this piece now where, it might only be 5 offers you're competing against versus 20 offers. I still go back to our partners.
Mhm.
Use our cash partners.
Yep.
I have a deal closing next week that I used Ribbon. We used the Ribbon. We used the Ribbon appraisal component. The Ribbon appraisal came in more than what the bank appraiser came in at. So my client's in a win-win situation because Ribbon is cutting their wiring at closing an additional $5,000 because they made an error. And so would my client have gotten the house? Probably not, because it was cash. Yes. Yes, Vicki. Yes, the appraisal the bank still requires. So for this particular client, he was a Wells Fargo client. The bank still requires it because they have to have it for their underwriting. But then we had the Ribbon piece behind. And so with the Ribbon piece, it didn't matter. The bank was doing theirs as formality because the deal was going to close regardless.
Yeah, I'm going to share this with you right now. I just got this yesterday. So Leah Berland is our Ribbon rep. Ribbon, Leah at ribbon.com.
Mm-hmm.
Hi, Craig and Jeff. We've seen some great engagement from your team over the first half of the year, and we want to provide you with a sneak peek below at some testimonials we've collected from C21 Baggins agents that we've used in the program. The newsletter will be sent out after the 4th of July holiday. I'll send you on agents who have a Ribbon account. I hope you all have one, and we hope this will give your team some ideas on how they can apply this to their own team.
So is she new? We no longer have Vanessa, or is she above her?
He's above her.
Okay.
So Georgelina Vittori, how'd you hear about through my broker? How this
And
program?
Georgelina is a new agent with us too.
Lana's not new with us, but how did you hear about Ribbon from my broker? What challenges we had? My clients were pre-approved for a conventional loan with low down payment, and we were beat out over and over by cash offers and buyers willing to cover the large appraisal gaps. How was your interaction with your Ribbon? It was pretty easy, mostly via emails. If I had a question, I would receive a prompt and a clear answer. Great news.
So here's the thing. I'm going to back up to Georgelina. She was one who actually had, hers was an appraisal situation too. the ribbon that she was covered on ribbon, bank appraisal came in for less. So it works. I mean, we're not making this stuff up.
Yeah, and now there's so many more entrants to the market. A lot of mortgage companies are doing it too. And,
They
ribbon
are.
is a 1% fee. But I want to caution you, and I'm not saying they're doing this, but the mortgage companies that are doing it for no money, there's a lot of ways mortgage companies can raise rates or add points
Yep.
that buyer won't recognize. Because there's risk when you're guaranteeing an offer for a buyer, there's risk. And they're making a little bit of money on the loan typically, but they're probably fattening up the loan.
They
So
are.
you're paying ribbon 1%. You might be paying the mortgage company 1%, but it's hidden in their points or their rate.
Absolutely.
So there's really no free lunch, period. So
There is no free lunch. And I think the thing that people always have to remember too is look to see who that bank is and make sure that bank is not going to drop the ball. Because we harp on it's 1%, it's 1%, 1%. But remember, if that bank drops the ball and they're not closing during that contract period, your client's going to pay the 2.75.
right. Okay, so buyer power shifts. So you don't need to necessarily waive your inspection,
Mm-mm.
and you really shouldn't. You don't need to waive your appraisal
Nope.
because we've got enough market comps to show what houses are really worth, and we know a lot of sellers are grossly overpricing.
Mhm.
Right. So if somebody wrote, if it's been on the market for over a few weeks, you can go in at list price or even ask for closing costs. Yes, you can ask for closing costs now. And closing costs are a great thing. Because if you can get a seller to pay some of the buyer's closing costs, you can actually buy down their rate,
Right.
which is a great idea going forward. So that's an option in today's market with the shift. Yes, there's no free money. But there's lots of ideas that make it sound like free money. So what else? Appraisals, inspections, closing costs. Those are all new options for us that we really couldn't even entertain 6 months ago. And
We can
sometimes
even throw in warranties too, because remember back in the
Oh,
day, you used to be
there you
able to do warranties. You can throw in the warranty.
the last two deals I had with clients coming in with pre-approvals with banks kept going sideways and needed several extensions. Yeah. Because the banks aren't lightening up, guys. They're going to get stricter, not harder. And now they're looking for the higher credit scores and the bigger down payments and they're checking the qualification of these buyers. The 6% rates, not a high rate, but it's a lot higher than 3%.
Here's talking about the bank situation. I had a deal that closed this month and everything was fine. We got the clear to close. And this was the first time I ever had this happen. And I actually had to call and I talked to the underwriter. They had given the clear to close, but because it was a situation where a tenant was in the place, they made the appraiser go back out and double check the property before they issued that clear to close. This is 4 days before closing to make sure that the tenant was really out. Now, I'd never had that happen before.
I just talked to one of our agents this morning by email, and she's been wanting to sell her house for a long time, and she's been fixing it up. She put a new roof, she put a new AC. It's all ready to go now. She wants to launch it on July 5th. Nice, big, very well taken care of ranch house, and she bought a horse. That's her new best friend, and she wants to go find an acre and a half with a nice ranch house on it that she can have a horse in her backyard.
Mm-hmm.
And we've been talking about this for months, and she's decided to put the house on the market, but she doesn't know where she's going to go. So she's going to ask for a seller leaseback for a month.
Okay.
And I had to tell her, I said, number one, I don't like seller leasebacks.
Right.
Right. It can be done. It can work out fine, but there's a lot of problems that could happen. And number two, I don't feel comfortable that you're going to find what you want with a 30-day.
Right. Mm-hmm.
You're looking for 1.5 acres with a nice house that you can have your horse in your backyard. I can't even think of many places in Tampa Bay where that can happen.
She can come our way. I have some areas she can look for. Tell her to move to Orlando.
Well, that might be an option for her because she can't go anywhere. Yep. But yeah, it's really risky for a seller to put their house on the market. If they do it right, the house is going to sell. Mm-hmm. And then they got no place to go. And then you're sucked into a year-long lease somewhere for a lot of money and go visit your horse in a stable somewhere. So the idea is to find the house you want. And if you're not in a position to buy it now, we've got resources that will qualify you for both. You've got
Absolutely.
not, and you've got ribbon.
Mhm.
Right. But this is an agent who doesn't really do a lot with us. She's a good agent, but she's not watching training right now, or probably hasn't watched training in months, and probably doesn't. If I said what's ribbon, if I said what's knock, she wouldn't know.
Right.
Right. So anyway, we got a couple more minutes. Kathleen shared an article with me, and I think this is important because a lot of people like to save money. And that's not what I want. Training. Oh, this is the guy I talked about yesterday. So Ryan's a young kid, was a young kid, came to work for me many, many years ago, moved to Colorado, become a skier, got back into real estate. And he's just,
Hello, everyone. How you doing? Happy Wednesday. First of all, we got the Stanley Cup. Congratulations to the Avalanche. I'm hoping it rubs off on the Rockies a little bit. They haven't lost a game since the Avalanche won the Cup. That parade is tomorrow down in Denver at 9 a.m. if you're around and you're interested. Ways that came out of the meeting yesterday. So the first one is that generally the council is leaning towards some sort of regulation. They still want to do some more research. They want to hear from the community. There's a couple of things.
So my point in sharing that is I'm in his database, right? Ryan probably worked for me 15 years ago, right? And he still keeps me in touch. And it's just kind of neat. If he called me on the phone, we'd have lots to talk about because I see his marketing, what he's doing, right? But he's got a database that's been robust, that he's been maintaining for decades, right? Right. And here he is. He went to a county meeting, and Breckenridge is talking about disallowing short-term rentals. And that's a big deal in a ski town, right?
Absolutely.
People buy condos, they want short-term rentals. So he's providing a public service announcement. So the residents and the people that he knows what's going on in the government side of the market. Right. I just thought it was very cool.
It goes back to database.
It all goes back to database. Kathleen Long, no, that's not it. There it is. 10 reasons to survey your property. Number 1, determine the visible boundary lines. How can you tell where my property starts and my property ends? My lot's got this long dog leg on it, right? But when they surveyed, that wasn't my dog. You got a big dog too?
Me?
Mm-hmm.
No, I have lap dogs. That's mine. You said dog, and he was just like, yeah.
Oh, a dog leg. Oh, got it. Anyway, so number 1, very simple. Determine the visible boundary lines. Why? Because when you move into your neighborhood, I got to tell you the story. So I'm walking this morning, and one of my neighbors just closed on their house. And, it was a nice house. She got $1.3 million for it. And I'm walking by this morning, and there's this pile of crap on the side of the road. And as I got closer to it, it was a DE filter and a gas heater. And obviously they didn't work. So she sold this house for $1.3 million. And obviously the pool heater obviously didn't work, because I looked at the pool heater and the cover was off of it, and it was a nest. The rats had been living inside the pool heater, and there was torn cloth and all kinds of weeds, all brown, just stacked in there, and the rats were just nesting in it. Right. And that's a seller who sold her house for $1.3 million with a pool heater that doesn't even friggin' work. I just don't like that. If I were selling my house, I'm going to test everything out and fix it or disclose it. I don't know if she disclosed it or not, but it was just really something to think how neglected that was. Her husband died years ago, so she's been maintaining that big house by herself. But $1.3 million, pretty good for her. Okay, number 2. Locations and dimensions of improvements. You can actually measure the square footage of a house by the survey, because house square footage surveys are measured outside wall to outside wall. Right? You all know that? So my house is 53 feet wide. So if it was a square, which it's not, but it was just 53 feet by 60 feet, I could just say 53 times 60, and there'd be 3,180 square feet. Right. So you can actually measure a house off the survey, because they give you the measurements of the exterior walls. So the appraiser doesn't have to measure. Location of utilities, and pretty important things to know. you know,
Mhm.
locations of obvious easements. So it's interesting, the property that I'm selling now was originally designed out a 60-foot road right away. And we don't need a 60-foot wide road anymore because the road leading up to our road, they got shrunk down to 30. So we're going to shrink it to 30. So these lots look like they're a lot deeper than they are. But they just gave us an easement over that first 30 feet. So our front yard is going to be really, really deep.
Okay.
But when you look at it, it's a big, right? The lot's really 111 feet deep, but with the 30 feet, it's 141 feet deep.
Okay.
Well, 141 feet gives you a really nice deep lot to put a nice pool package and all that stuff in. But the first 30 feet is an easement you can't build in, and then your setbacks stick in from there. So if you didn't have a survey, you wouldn't know that,
No.
right? Right of ways. This is especially important in vacant land. You need easements to get through, and the easements need to be recorded to give you a right of way. And Susie Brush is looking at some vacant land right now, and she's having some situations where the listing agent nor the seller even bothered to see if there was egress to the property, and there's not. So then she was going to try to take on. I said, absolutely not. It's not your job.
Mm-mm.
You get the seller to contact all the neighbors and work something out, because he's going to pay some money to get an egress and ingress and egress. And then I was walking
on this whole survey piece, going back to our critical date timeline, there's a piece in there, and I think a lot of times folks forget that the seller is supposed to provide you a copy of their existing survey within 5 days.
of the contract acceptance.
Exactly. And a lot of people just like, I'll just get the survey when the time. No, you want to get it because it may be something that you need to determine you want to cancel the contract.
You want to get it at time of listing,
Mhm.
just to abide by the terms of the contract.
Correct.
I mean, I don't think it's like a penalty or a breach of contract if the seller does it. It's a seller shall, if they possess one. They could always say they lost it or something. But if they
They
haven't,
lost it, but they can get a copy of it pretty easy. Ask them where their last closing documents were, and they can get it from that title company. So
Good.
I've had them, and they get it.
that's right, because you asked for it.
Yep.
Natural and manufactured objects affecting the property. So it's funny, the house 2 doors down from me, well, 4 lots down from me, there's a house. And the guy that owned that house owned the lot next door. And then there's a vacant lot, which is under construction now, then there's my neighbor. So the guy that owned the house with the lot sold, and he put the house and the lot on the market together for a very high price,
Okay.
forcing the buyer of the house to buy the lot next door too. And that strategy didn't work. So he got an offer to buy the house, and now he's got the vacant lot next door. Well, he has since stopped taking care of the vacant lot next door. So the grass is dying. He was an electrician. He's got a beautiful fenced in property with lights and these little columns he had all around it. But what he did is he built a brick paper patio hammock area out around over the vacant lot that he owned also, and
Okay.
gave himself a really nice outdoor area. Well, now the buyer in the house is using all that, but it's not on his land. So he's going to have to rectify that at some point. And the survey is what's going to show it. When they show the line, you can see that a lot of the improvements of the house are on the vacant lot. So natural and manufactured objects affecting the property is, you want to get a survey so you know what that is, because that guy's got to clean up,
Yep.
or you can just rip it all out. My neighbor on the other side of me just put he wants to drive his golf cart from his garage to his boat dock. So I put a brick paver walkway, and it literally hugs my property line all the way down to the dock, which is really, it doesn't bother me, but it really is. He violated the setback. There's a 7.5-foot setback there. But I guess a paver is considered an impervious structure, so I didn't really care about it. But a survey will show if my fence is actually in the right place, he may or may not have built over my property line.
Right.
But a survey would show that. And that would be a new survey, because my survey is not going to show that, because it wasn't there when my survey was done.
Okay.
Discrepancy between recorded instruments and the ground itself. We did a sale. I don't mean to talk about my neighborhood a lot. It's just the only place I do business, right?
Mhm.
I sold a house over here, and the survey said the house was built 6.7 feet from the property line. We have a 7.5-foot side setback. So technically, the house was built in the easement.
Mhm.
And discrepancy between recorded instruments and the ground itself. We actually called another surveyor out, got it resurveyed, and guess what? It was 7.5 feet. So surveyors make mistakes too.
To err is human. Yep.
Yeah. Two more chats real quick. Yeah, if available. Yeah, Sundance is an option. 9, elevations of land on property. Now that's a special survey. You got to ask for a topographic survey because most surveys are doing boundary surveys. But
Okay.
if you've got land that has rolling hills and stuff, if you want to see what the elevations are or where the wetlands are, you'll get either a wetland delineation
Mhm.
addition to the survey or a topographical survey on top of that. And if you're dealing with vacant land, especially, those are very important potentially, especially if you're
That's a key because with those type of surveys, and especially if you've not done land contracts, it's not like you're not going to get the information back in 10 days. So make sure that you know what you're doing, especially if your client is going out there, because those surveys right now are taking 30 to 45 days, if not longer.
Oh, yeah. Well, it's just like we do to ourselves, Crystal. I mean, well, yesterday was the last day of the month. We had 150 closings scheduled. We have a joke in the company. Don't talk to Joy on Thursdays. I mean, she won't even take my call. She goes in, she locks her door and she puts her headphones in and she won't talk to anybody. Because she had 25 closings on her desk yesterday and more work from Wednesday because she was out. And then Thursday. So it was just fun. I called Chris. I said, "Where's Joy?" She's in her office. Door's closed. Don't talk to Joy today. It's just Rosa, and when I go in, Rosa says, "Are you going upstairs?" I go, "Yeah." She goes, "Will you get these to Joy?" I go, "Sure." Because she's afraid to go in there. Don't give me any more. I'm done.
Joy has all the power on Thursdays.
Yeah. Because the overnight's got to get out for the Friday deliveries. But anyway, why was I saying that? Joe, so surveyors everybody's busy because everyone's closing at the end of the month and everybody's got to jump to meet that date. You're just so much easier if you can schedule it out in the middle of the month or somewhere a week out, just because it takes the pressure off a lot of people. Last one, and we'll be done, is setback requirements. They'll usually print it on the survey. So you can see,
Absolutely.
most people don't realize, but from the curving of the street to the sidewalk is not yours. Your property starts inward of that. So that's an easement, and then your property starts. So the setback requirements will show you, you've got to be, Symphony House has got to be 20 feet from the front corner lot. Now the front corner lot is not the corner of the street, it's inside of the sidewalk.
Right.
So that's my 20-foot number, right? And the backyard has a setback and the side yard has a setback. And so that's all that we shed. So anyway, I wanted to make sure we had enough content to fill our class today, and it seems like we did. And cool.
We're over.
Joy says, "Love you guys." Yes, John, septic and surveys and drain fields, which, you probably want to talk to the surveyor and say, please identify the drain field and identify and well pumps. And well pumps, with one more thing on well pumps, a lot of people put a well pump somewhere near the property line and they let their neighbor tap into it, which is a very nice thing to do. But if they did not file a well pump use agreement, when I sell the house, the guy who buys the house that has the pump on it, it's their pump. And then he just cuts the other guy's line and he's got no water. But if they did it together and they shared the cost, they would want to get a well pump use agreement recorded and surveyed. And then it would go with the land. So when the house gets sold to the new guy, he's got to honor that because the neighbor has legal egress to that pump. But if it's not done that way and it happens, it's a problem. So when you're listing a house and they tell you got an irrigation well, which is a great thing to have, ask if it's shared or not. And if it's shared, ask if they have a well pump use agreement. And what if you're the neighbor next door who the pump's not on, the well's not on your property? Don't advertise that well comes with the property unless there's a use agreement recorded with the county. So lots of little nuggets that you guys are going to get. Very cool. Well, thank you, Crystal.
Thank you. I enjoyed. Have a safe and wonderful trip next week.
Yep.
And happy early birthday to you.
Thank you. Yeah. And Lily.
All right. Talk to you soon.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye-bye.
Thank you, thank you, thank you.